on YouTube. Right, we are now live. Let's just give a few minutes for people to stream in. Great, I think we now have a quorum. Ladies, gentlemen, welcome to today's live webinar on life after COVID for the creative economy. I know for many, in the creative industry, everything has come to a halt, as most of our work really involves some form of social interaction, whether it's training, performances, exhibition, or shooting. And the reality is life might not be the same for quite a while, but that does not mean that we should just sit at home and wait for things to turn around. We don't think that should be the case. And I know a lot of you who logged in today or attending this webinar have questions, looking for answers or ideas on how best to prepare, or you could be doing, during this downtime. And to help me, with this discussion, I'm joined by an amazing panel who will help us navigate through this situation and that we find ourselves in. Now, I will quickly go through their bios, but we've also shared their detailed bios. So I'll start with the ladies. We have Judy Ogana, who is the National Program Officer, Culture at UNESCO. We have June Gashui, a very old friend of ours. June is a performer and a lawyer as well. And then we have one and the only Nonini Gengetru. He's an artist, performer, and also the current chair of the Creative Society of Kenya. We have Adam Kiboi, who is a writer, editor, digital marketer, but also consulting right now with the Creatives Garage. We have one and the only Giuliani, an artist, performer, but also an entrepreneur. And the legendary David Mureithi, aka DJ Light, who is the CEO of the Creative Enterprise Center. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for making the time. Yeah, I think we are in an interesting time, and I think I want to quickly request your thoughts, or get a feel of your thoughts in terms of how the crisis has affected you. But I also want us to move very quickly to what we could be doing. But let me start off by the last from the the last bio intro. Let's start with David. How has this crisis really affected you, and what do you think it will affect the industry going forward?
I think I'll even speak on behalf, and thanks for having us. I'll speak on behalf of probably the creatives in general, and then more specifically to even my art form, which my passion is DJing. It's certainly, I think, there's never been a time when income has hit a stop with such, it's like an accident, it's like a car accident, like a head-on collision that just didn't see coming, and it just hits you. and your body goes into shock, and you have some time and you wake up in ICU and realize, wow, what just happened? And I think a lot of the industry is sort of feeling like that. They're sort of still in a bit of state of shock and going through the 5 stages of grief. And well, at least it feels like that. And I think what we have to do is first get over the shock, allow to grieve, but get over the shock in your time. And then it's the word everyone is using: innovate, 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 and find probably new income paths that might become a new norm for you.
Awesome. Giuliani, for people who are in the music industry, how has this pandemic really affected you?
Tukomsoto. Hakuna kitu. But at the same time, it has enabled us to relook at how we used to do stuff. And I think the conversation is not the truth of the art, the conversation is in the platforms that we have to now explore. So the truth of the art remains the same. The truth of expression, the truth of wanting to share what you believe in and stuff like that, that remains the same when we have to always dig deeper into that. The only challenge we have is now, can we relook at the platforms that we used to engage? But the only thing that for me personally, I think is we need to relook at our own platforms, because I feel like we are using other people's platform to do things. So it means tumepatikana pabaya because we have never created our own platforms in the first place.
Yeah.
So now we have to piggy bank or sit on the Twitters and the Zooms and the whatever that we don't even, we have to now, just as first aid for now, but now I think it's for us to look at the platforms and the spaces we have to go to.
And just to pick up from that, your fellow musician, Nonini, has done a lot of tours, diaspora, and I know this, of course, means that probably people will not be able to travel for quite a while. Nonini, how do you feel this industry, this pandemic has hurt your career or your performances and events that you had planned?
Vile Giuliani tu amesema, yani tuko msoto, as in it's affected everybody across the board, whether you're a creative ama you're self-employed, you're employed, manze imeshika kila mtu flat foot. I think things have gone on a shutdown, so the tours can't happen. I was actually planning a summer tour after I launched my new album, but that has been cancelled. Forget even that. We do daily events, we do nightly events. Usually we partner with DJs, and we have daily, weekly theme nights. Like those have been cancelled. People who are earning money every week just to be able to pay rent and put a meal on the table has suddenly stopped. So Ninoma, we are feeling it. We're totally feeling it.
Oh, June, do you feel the same?
I certainly do. And I think maybe just to add, it's all creative industries that are going through this. I'm imagining people who were planning to shoot movies, and documentaries and things like that. I'm also in the music space in terms of my art form, but I also serve on a film classification board. So I know that a lot of people have canceled, for example, their license applications because they're not going to be able to shoot given the situation that we're in. So I think it's something that has certainly affected the creative sector across the board, especially because a lot of us were in the performing arts. And by that, I mean, as Nonini and Giuliani have said, we were going out on a weekly basis, on a daily basis to earn our bread. May not necessarily have been salaried in the sense that we would earn our salary at the end of the month. But a lot of these guys, think of the entire ecosystem, hairstylists, makeup artists, set designers, the entire ecosystem, because one show has been canceled or one movie shoot has been canceled. Every single person in that ecosystem has now taken a financial hit.
Great. So let's move ahead now. Kind of pick up from Judy, because you know, the umbrella body UNESCO covers a wider sector, or you know, the whole sector in the creative economy. What can the creative industry or the people who work in the creative industry be doing now to survive this pandemic?
Okay. Thank you first for having me and for sitting with a very, very prestigious panel. First of all, let's also accept that this is a global pandemic and it's a health crisis. So apart from the ramifications of the economic situation, plus our mental stability, I think that it's important to remember that actually we're dealing with multiple issues. I think that as the sector, what we should be doing is actually what we're doing now, looking at what are the ways that we can come together and deal with the ramifications that obviously all the artists on the panel have talked about. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, UNESCO launched a global program called Resiliat. And really, Resiliat is around resilient art and looking at what this COVID-19, as a platform, looking at what this COVID-19 has meant to the sector and how we can be able to mitigate the effects. And so I think that we need to, as we are doing, pivot very quickly, look at what opportunities there are and share ideas, share experiences across the globe and see how as a national, how we can be able to mitigate the issues. So looking at the most vulnerable groups in our society, as June said, we are talking about musicians. We're also talking about visual artists. We're talking about filmmakers, poets, dancers. How do we make sure that our policies, our interventions, what we try to do is going to be directly dealing with the crisis. Now, collecting data, collecting information the way we are doing, the way Resiliat as a program was launched yesterday is trying to do. And by the way, Uganda has done their own Resiliat project, is a way of collecting information that will inform us on how to move forward. So I think that the first thing is, let's get information, let's know where we are at, let's use that information to mitigate issues and mitigate the problems that we are seeing that sector going through. Thank you.
I think on that note I'd like to invite all the attendees. There's a chat feature on your, on your screen that you can send in your questions, thoughts. So we'll collect all that information together and share with the various bodies that can intervene in this situation. Cool. Dave, maybe in terms of people who are already doing something, maybe if I pick up from you, Adam, I know you guys are doing or are planning to do like a festival or an online festival. Please talk to us about how this can work and what are the challenges that you're finding?
Well, so as Juliani said, we need to find new ways for us to distribute and consume art, yeah? And so what we're doing as Creatives Garage is we're creating a fully online festival, basically taking what you'd expect at an arts festival and placing the whole thing online. So DJs will be performing live by live stream, or we'd have a spoken word artist, film screenings. We even went as far as to add a vendor section for people who work with their hands and create, or painters, or guys who make jewelry, or if you make chilies or something like that. Basically, finding new ways to get the content and the creations out there to people. And we're hoping that that would actually become a thing that becomes regular. As we actually have seen people doing live streams before, but it's all individual. So we're trying to collect everyone pamoja, and so we can reach more people. And if everyone's working together, we can hit a bigger network. That's basically it. Yeah.
But that means, for such an event to happen, there's a lot of things that you need to navigate. And I know, June, you have ideas here because there's a lot of issues to deal with in terms of copyright. How can people, put this kind of event together, making sure that they don't they don't trample on other people's rights and copyrights?
I mean, that's an interesting one. We've been watching a lot of these live DJ sets and things like that, where everybody's getting shut down after a few minutes and being defiant and getting back online because we must listen to the music. The truth of the matter is, and to Giuliani's point, a lot of these platforms were pre-existent, meaning they already had inbuilt copyright restrictions that were already there. All of us are familiar with, say, YouTube, for example. If you video your child dancing to something and the music in the background was not something that you had cleared, you're posting a cute video of your child, but at the back of that system, there is a content management system that enables YouTube to track the use of that music without the necessary authorization. So it's the same thing that's happening with a lot of the current copyright sort of infringement cases that have not been filed, but are definitely being taken, action is being taken against them. I've seen a few petitions online, people sort of saying, please, record labels and the like, could you please just give us some leeway here, because this is not something that, as Judy says, it's a global pandemic, we're all struggling, or find a way to make it easier through either Creative Commons licensing or some other softer copyright regimes. I think it's certainly worthwhile to ask for permission. I mean, to Adam and everybody else who is thinking of using the online platforms to pitch, to perform, to share. The sort of emotional need that we have doesn't bypass the legal requirements for copyright protection. So it really would be a conversation. What kind of credit? I read an article not too long ago where a teacher was trying to create some content for students to use while they were at home. And initially she had a block on it, and there was a conversation that happened with the owners of the content she was using. And they actually agreed for her to make sure there was credit. That I got this content courtesy of whomever, and that could be a middle ground in the interim, so that at least we don't stop the amazing festivals that are being proposed and that are being planned.
Great. David, if I may ask, what kind of skills or knowledge or new skills that people need to survive through this?
Well, one of the things I think as creatives, I mean, I run a small consultancy called Creative Enterprise Center, and what we do is business skills training for creatives, and this comes up a lot actually about resilience. This is a perfect example of a time when certain skills are needed to survive this. And what do I mean by that? I think the first thing we have to acknowledge as we're having this whole discussion that creatives emotional human beings. Okay. And even while we're talking about solutions and everything, the first thing, as I said earlier, is that we have to deal with the fact that we've had a head-on collision, and our mental wellness is at stake here, because it's very creative when you're a bit depressed or a bit down. So first thing is actually getting help around basically your mind strong again, and starting to believe in yourself. Because when an artist, be it a painter, a musician, is not on stage, is not painting, they start losing a piece of themselves, and probably even start losing their self-esteem around their creativity. So I think before we talk about any solutions, I think that is very, very key for one. And so that's the first step, I would say. The other sort of skills is technology. I mean, there's no escape right now. If we don't embed technology in one form or another, we may suffer. I like what Giuliani says about the art itself. The art form is still, it still has integrity. It's now just changing your mind to say, how can I still have the same effect, the same cause and effect, but on a different platform? So here, we are really talking about moving to different platforms, being flexible about your distribution, essentially. And the third thing, I think, is just being unique, because now you're competing with the whole world right now. This webinar, somebody could be tuning in from the States, for example. So your former area of competition or industry is now global. So you have to change your thinking, probably even in your songwriting, in your art, whatever you're doing. So just pick 3.
Great. I think I always say people need first to look at, create regionally, but then think global. And I know, Giuliani, you've been working on this platform for quite a while. Please, just tell us how this platform works and how artists can plug in.
For me, maybe a quick background is that, so when I felt like when I became so popular as an artist, they reached a plateau, and I've shared this with David before. Like, we reach a certain point and you can't go beyond that, and there's an expectation about who you're supposed to be. But I feel like the lessons that I learned in the industry and my interaction with people, if we create institutions, and my thinking, like, if we create institutions that can repeat the success that I had, or even grow my success as an individual, then we can literally grow as an industry. So the whole industry, if you look at 5 years or 4 years from before, the whole industry was changing. Even the US, the global industry, music, entertainment industry was changing. So we needed to relook at how we move forward. So for me, we started Dandora Hip Hop City as an institution to build talent and to create talent and to repeat the success, and actually to anticipate. Because when we started music, it was, you never know when you'll be good or you'll be successful, but I think there are certain lessons that I learned that we can actually predict success. And then we came up with Msanii, and Msanii I shared with a couple of guys about how do we use music itself to create as collateral to get facility from a bank or from an institution. So all these things we've been doing for the last 3-4 years, and so we were prepared for moments like this. The only difference is that you can never move alone. And the institution and the people we are talking to, the people that we think can take us further, and that the collaboration part was really necessary for us to move. So it doesn't matter how brilliant or how innovative an idea is, if the other component cannot be attached to it. So the banks that we're having discussions with, the other institutions that we're having discussion with, they didn't get it, because for them it's just business as usual and they have to maintain their basics. So I think the reason why I'm not in a worried state right now is because I think if I have a conversation with David and if I have a conversation with June, definitely we know 1 or 2 things that we need to move this industry forward. And I think this industry is the only industry that right now can survive this, because not only are we being used now for education, we are being used to entertain, but we are being even used to sort out mental health issues and stuff for people. So there's no other industry that is required at this particular moment as ours. So we just need to get all the other people to see it, so that we all move forward and see the value of it. And maybe lastly, the example is when the doctors, I don't know if it was a rumor or something, but the doctor heard that we're being given 100 million. Yeah, 100 million, I still need it, I don't have it. So we're being given 100 million. So they were like, this money shouldn't go to this industry. And yet, that's how far off everybody feels like entertainment and the creative industry shouldn't be even included. Like, this is a serious conversation. Let's wear our suits and you guys go entertain us later. So I think we need to work with everybody and we need to bring everybody on board for them to see how our industry and the creative industry can literally move everything forward.
Great. Nonini, I know you're involved in other sectors as well. You're in, you have a production company, a video production company, clothing line. And recently, I think I saw you sharing some short web series, drama videos. Just, like how, what was the idea behind this and why did you decide to go this route?
Okay, I can touch a little bit on what Giuliani has said, and also David. This thing has gotten people very innovative. Like, since Watu Wakeja, you're in the house, so people have found ways on using the digital platforms. So you find YouTubers are creating content for YouTube. Like, if you create content for YouTube and you're monetized, you can be able to make passive income. It can come while you sleep because you have a monetized page. Also DJs, I commend all the DJs out there. DJs have a Facebook group, and they have about 40,000 people on that Facebook group. They go live every night, and they have people all over the world sending them money through something called Cash App. So if a DJ comes and displays his skill, people support, their fans support. So through most probably like crowdfunding, which is commendable. And me on the other side, I decided to release an online movie series called Code 254. It's playing live on my YouTube page, and it's a 5-minute series, but I have like 30 episodes. So you can watch the series from the house every 5 minutes, an episode. Kama uko kwa matri, if you're in a matatu, you're driving, 5 minutes you can watch, and you finish a whole episode, and it has 30 episodes, just keeping people entertained and keeping people indoors. Sababu sahi watu wanafaa kwa keja. If you have no reason to be outside, don't go outside. Leo niko kwa keja, sitoki hapa. And to one thing to add the last comment, Giuliani talked about, when the president talked about the 100 million, everybody went haywire. We as creatives have to remember we are not special. You know, like these pedestal creatives, yes, we are self-employed, but let's remember that everybody is dealing with this situation. So with that said, I've created a platform online. It's called TurnUp. It's called turnup.net, where creatives can come and share their passion, and then their fans can support them. Like if somebody comes on Giuliani's page and they like what Giuliani is doing, from all over the world, they can donate some amount. But that amount being donated is not only for Giuliani. Giuliani has to show a project he's doing for the community. So if you get the money, 50%, you do something with the community. So even all the projects I'm doing online, I'm supporting somebody somewhere in the community. I'm supporting Madare, slums. There's some sanitary towels you're buying there for women, about 40,000 women. So once you do that, you have a connection with the people, so that you don't look like it's just creatives who are trying to be special. Yeah. You understand?
Yeah. And that's, you know, it's interesting because yesterday I watched a DJ who had been programmed to perform, and then, you know, I think lost power, and he went and borrowed a generator, and he actually performed with a Windows laptop, drenched kabisa with, you know, from the rain, and through the crowdfunding, the Cash App and, you know, M-Pesa, I think people actually bought him a whole new equipment set.
Yep.
The power of community, you know, crowdfunding. I think we need to tap into that. The other thing, Judy, maybe I can. This would go for you, because we have two kind of industries. We have the formal and the informal. You know, what are the needs for both, for each, and how can we probably support the different sides?
Okay, thank you so much for that. And it's been really interesting listening to my fellow panelists. I just wanted to touch on something and connect with what you're saying about formal and informal artists. With the 100 million, what did that show us? For me, what it showed us is that we need to organize ourselves. We need to find ways and mechanisms to organize the sector so that money like that doesn't store us the way it did. I'm not even talking about storing other people, but ourselves as a sector. We were caught unawares, and it became very difficult and very cumbersome to see how that money can be used. But speaking about formal and informal sector, the government needs to step in, because we have standard setting instruments. We have ways that we can organize the sector through policies and legislation. And one of the ones that we have signed up as Kenya is the 2005 Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expression. That means that as Kenya, we are obliged as government to organize the sector and give policies and legislation that support the sector. So, for example, we have a recommendation that concerns the status of the artist. How do we professionalize groups and artists, even if they're individuals or companies? How do we ensure that their social and economic status is worried about or is taken care of in a legislation? How do we ensure that these measures then support the individual artists or the companies. In other words, there must be a mechanism that exists in government or with government that makes sure that both formal and informal are recognized, so that people don't feel like what I felt with what the visual artists were feeling is that when people are talking about artists, they're only talking about musicians, or they only talk about filmmakers, they forget about visual artists.
Yeah.
All artists are then recognized within the policy framework. So what I'm saying is that there's a space and a place for all. We don't all have to organize ourselves and become companies. Individual freelance artists have as much a right to have economic status recognized in government as much as a company, a film company that employs several people. So what I'm saying is that there's need for organizing, and there are tools and frameworks that exist that the government of Kenya is party to, which include the convention that I spoke about and the recommendation on the status of the artist that we can rely on to organize the sector so that people don't feel like they're going to be left out because there's a visual artist who's sitting in his studio. And so in that way, when we're talking about ways of relieving the pain or the difficulties that artists are facing, somebody in Kilifi feels that they are represented and recognized as part of the creative economy in the creative sector.
Okay. So does that mean that, you know, we should sort of be thinking about like a bigger umbrella body that if, you know, let's say a big funder wanted to support the industry would channel through? And I know Nonini, this might touch on what you're also doing with your creative society as well.
Yeah, I think that different subsectors organize differently, and so I think what I'm advocating for is that each subsector, all subsectors, need to organize in some way, so that the policies and legislation touch each subsector, and everybody feels included. So, for example, the 100 million, it should not feel like only musicians will benefit. There should be a structure that involves all artists. And this is not something that is new to Kenya. It happens in different countries. I know that within the new policy or the recently revamped policy, culture policy, there was a requirement for an arts council. Perhaps an arts council can be able to take on the responsibility of organizing artists. I think that in terms of looking forward, one of the things that I think I have learned through the process of the COVID process and also the 100 million is that we artists need to organize ourselves. And this is something that is discussed we are in several WhatsApp groups, all of us, and we are constantly discussing the issue of organizing. And what I'm saying is that there are instruments, certainly UNESCO instruments, that help give the structure for organizing the sector and not more.
Nonini, do you have anything to add there?
Yes, what I can say is like currently there is such a structure that exists. It's just to get people aware about it and people to organize and know how to join in, which is the Creative Society of Kenya, which I chair. And CSK is basically a trade association, which is meant to be the umbrella body for the creative sector. And that's our mandate. And by the creative sector, we're talking about music, which includes performing arts and visual arts. Then we have IT and software. We have film and TV. We have design, which has the graphic designers in there. We have people like fashion, they come under the design sector. We have like 8 sectors that I can define over here. So how it works with the music sector is that you find that we have associations. Different music musicians have associations. Mpaka Mashenani, people in Mombasa, people in Kakamega Central, they have their own associations. So how the society works is the associations nominate one person to come and sit on the board. So you find like the central associations gather up and they nominate one person who comes and sits at the board of CSK. So all other sectors also, that's the kind of setup we require. If it's advertising, they all meet up, all the associations and advertising, they nominate one person who comes and sits at our board. And our major objective is to be the voice of all these sectors to the government, be that bridge, be that gap. Like if there's an issue in the music sector, all the associations come and tell us this is our issue, and we voice that issue to the government. We become the lobby group.
Great. Let me move on to branding as an artist or a creative person. How do you promote yourself? Now we're talking about taking your work digital to the digital space. And Adam, you can help here. And I know June as well has been doing her own concerts and maybe has ideas of how to push their brands and publicize the events that they're about to do and all that. So I don't know, Adam, you have ideas on how people can push, I mean, it's an ocean. How do you, break through?
Well, I mean, I feel like Giuliani, Nonini, and I think also June had mentioned early on that there's like people who are doing live streams, people who are getting the content online, but it can't always just be the same thing, yeah? I mean, there's other options. Let's say if you're a musician or if you play an instrument, you could actually teach a class. Or you can just like host an online class with a platform like what we're using right now. Or upload it to a platform like Udemy and actually sell it and make some tunes. Or teach someone's kids. Everyone's stuck at home. And as we mentioned earlier, like if you want to learn a new skill, and it doesn't have to be expensive. And also the thing with the live streams, a lot of people have been doing them, yes. But if you do them every week or maybe every 3 days, and you create consistency and you build an audience, and you could actually do the same thing that the DJs Nonini mentioned, where guys are getting donations from all over the world. Because right now, our audience is not just limited to who you have at a gig. Your audience is limited to how you get your content out there. I mean, and it doesn't have to be a full production. You don't have to have the most beautiful digs ever, or like you could be in a messy bedroom and it's interactive and it feels more authentic and people feel like they can connect with you. And also merchandising, which has not been a thing in Kenya for a while.
Yeah.
Get someone who makes t-shirts, have them send it to you later. Have them send it to you and we'll sell them online via Shopify. How do Kenyans consume music now? We don't go to gigs. So is your music available to stream on different platforms, such as Spotify? And an application like, I think it's called like Deezer, costs about $10, which is a G. I know not a lot of people might have that, but that would get you onto about 30 different music streaming platforms if you're not already on them. And yeah,
it's an aggregation platform, yeah?
Yeah, so basically what this platform does is it's not Kenyan, by the way,
yeah.
But you would upload your music there and it gets you onto Spotify, iTunes Music, Tidal. My list is getting short up. The one by Techno Beats, I think. But yeah, but it's literally, we need to look at how Kenyans were consuming music before and how people were consuming content before or receiving what you're creating, and how can you work with what's available to you right now.
Yeah, I think David has something he wants to add onto that as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and in what Adam said, when you talk about branding, I think one of the ways to also maintain your brand is by essentially maintaining your share of mind. So as best as you can, and I know there are limitations because there's not a lot of credit facilities for creation. Not many people can do what Nyashinsky did the other day because they wouldn't have necessarily that size of support. But I think as a creative, you've got to think of how will I ensure when this is over, people will not me. That's my only input. Over to you,
yeah,
June.
Cool.
Yeah. I think I agree with everything that both Adam and David have said. I think the word Adam used that I am a complete fan of is authenticity. Because at the end of the day, if you start something you can't sustain here, people know you, your fans know you, they know who you are. And I think this is a perfect time to sort of share the reality that we are all going through. And I think the one thing we have going for us is that we pull from our creative selves and we pull from our emotional selves. And I feel sometimes if you're having a bad day, it's not a bad thing to just say, guys, hey, today was rough, you know, because I think people can then start to see you as not this unreachable big celeb person, but another human being going through the exact same reality that we all are. And I think that is a wonderful sort of fertile ground for new content. I know there's also the mental health issue. I think that is important to mention at this time, and I think Judy alluded to it, because a lot of people assume, simuko nyumbani, you're just at home, you're doing nothing. So create, write content, write stories, write poems, have new dance routines, all of that. But it's not that easy because, again, we're just like normal human beings. And sometimes if you don't have a song, just speak and say what it is that you're going through. In terms of the branding, I think just remember, as David says, when all this is over, you still have probably the same or a bigger following or fan base. And at this time, what is the messaging that we want to share? We want to tell people to stay at home. Like at the end of the day, if people are dying, we won't have anybody to experience and share the beautiful things that we're all creating, whether it's paintings, like the beautiful one behind me. Can you see how I'm supporting the visual artist? I think it's so important that we become a bit more down to earth with what's going on. And I'm not saying that everybody should go and compose a song or a story that is called COVID or Corona or sanitize or isolate. Like it's already been done. So how can you make yourself stand out? And at the end of the day, it comes down to authenticity, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's good to add on that we've been developing a platform for this kind of thing. And I think, the platform is ready and can do live streams, gaming, music, all that, together. And just to add on, yesterday, I think I saw some young people or young men who've come up together because of this not lockdown, but curfew and everything. So they lock themselves in a house, and they're about like 10 guys with different skills. And they all contributed to creating this amazing platform. So, a gadget that allows them to do a multi-camera production using mobile phones. And they're along, I think, Mombasa Road, called Numero IoT. So they've designed a vision mixer using mobile phones, and they're already doing like a talk show about technology on Facebook. So I think people need to also look at coming together in terms of partnerships, and I'm thinking that this kind of technology can also be used in a special way, like in music when you're using software like Ableton, which allows you to connect through IP addresses. So if people are able to do that, they probably can be even recording music from wherever. One person has a mixer somewhere, another guitarist working from another town, and all collaborating together in one project. I think we need to move on to some Q&A. We have quite some of them. I'll start off with Anthony. You asked what kind of, those kind of local platforms look like. I think I've explained a bit. There was one person who asked, how do you innovate when you're facing a creative slump and when you don't have money? What can the larger creative society help with mental health and raise stress levels? And this is from Wamboi.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. I think I keep on using that analogy of, and I'm sorry for the sort of very negative connotation, but it brings it home of the head-on collision that a lot of creators are facing. And the truth is, different people in different art forms and in different states of mind will recover at different times as others or mothers. But I think the thing to do is start your journey, allow yourself first to recover. I think that's the first thing, because I think if you try and get too busy quickly because you're panicking busy and you're not creating, etc., and your mindset is not ready, then you'll only make it worse. You'll go into a panic. I think, as I said, reach out, work on your mental health. If you have to do some yoga, if you have to, go jogging, whatever helps, get your creative juices running. If you think of authors, when they get writer's block, what do they do to unlock that writer's block? Sometimes they go away into the wilderness, and well, now we cannot go into the wilderness per se, but consider this a wilderness. I mean, if you're a musician, for example, and you'd always look for that time to start to write, this is a good time to just start writing. Just start. And as it says, when you can't, reach out to the community and say you're struggling, and maybe get motivation from others as well. Getting positive basically around you. But I'm no artist. Maybe I talk to the purist around here.
Yeah, cool. I think there's Sapna says, how can we at App Nairobi help to share projects, info, work to boost visibility online? I think Sapna, if you can share your the link to where people can submit their work, that would be really helpful.
Okay, so Sapna is from App Nairobi, which is an online which is a magazine, and I guess a content curator for Nairobi mostly, but also for Kenya. And Sapna, I think, as Wilfred said, just sharing the link, that would actually help a lot of people have a way to, just any outlet. If someone's doing something and if you have a platform that could share the work, I think with the link, that would help. Like every little bit counts. And just a quick thing about the previous question on mental health. If anyone who's listening in the audience, if you work in mental health, or just share your contacts as well. If you're willing to help creatives or even just Kenyans in general, people who are going through a creative slump or basically in that massive hole that is of frustration, anger, confusion, like what do I do next? If you have any ability to Saidia, please help out. That's it.
Yeah, I think there's also
an
organization called Headspace. You can find the link on the Facebook. That's for creatives, dealing with mental health as well. Yes, someone was saying?
Yeah, can I add to that?
Yes, please.
Also, like the platform I had mentioned earlier, the turnup.net. It's a free website where every creative can join, and we want actually to showcase your passion. So if you're a filmmaker, if you are a musician, just join the movement. Turnup.net, go in there, register yourself, andika tu hapo kwa comment Nonini ndo amentuma, I'll fast track your page na haraka you'll be online and you can share your art with the world.
Okay, cool. I think Adam as well, please we'll share the links for your festival as well. There's some people asking.
I think just aside from the link, I'm also going to get in touch with Nonini about turnup.net. So we'll also direct everyone who's been in touch with us towards his platform.
Mm-hmm.
Collaborations. Wonderful.
There we go.
So someone asked, what is the one positive thing that has come out from this? Is it financial behavior, business model, or means of interaction?
Can I try that one?
Yes.
I think honestly, I think it's the silence. I think that there was a lot of noise. There was saturation in a lot of the various markets, and now everything is quiet. Those guys who had said, let me pick up this particular art form just because I'm going through a midlife crisis, now it's a wrap. Like if you are not meant to be in this space, the silence is going to take care of that. And I think it's allowing guys to think, to take a step back. Earlier when we were speaking, David alluded to the fact that it's almost like the grieving, where you're going through the different stages of grief, and you get to the point of acceptance after you're in denial, you're bargaining, and all of, I don't know all of them by heart, but you get to the point where you've accepted that this is the reality. So what I'm finding that's positive is how people are reaching out to each other. The human to human contact, though virtually, is now more about, hey, are you really okay? How are you guys feeling? As opposed to, hey, come to my concert and buy my tickets, which has mostly been the reason a lot of us have acquaintances. I think the second thing is prioritizing. For example, every time we say we are coming together, we usually come together to promote a particular thing. In this case, what have we noticed? A lot of us don't have health insurance. A lot of us do not have savings at all. Like, we were living literally hand to mouth. We've not been very good at planning for a rainy day. And I think this is a really good time to sort of realize that and collaborate as to how, you know, if organizations like CSK can have discussions with all of the organizations and their members saying, fine, we want it to be many. However, what can we use our one voice to do? Can we set up welfare programs that are actually going to help us? Because it's COVID now, it could be something else later. And will we be prepared? Will we be ready? How ready are we for that next thing? God forbid, but if it does come, how ready are we?
I want to just echo what June has just said. I mean, this is one time that the gaps are clear. I mean, the gaps in the sector are very clear. I mean, we're only going to talk about the sector at this point. And the need to deal with the gaps, I think, is now more urgent. So, and when I was talking about organizing, it feels like we need the sector more than if it was just business as usual. And then also, I think that a lot of people are reaching out. Government is reaching out to us to find out what can we do? How can we do things better? Or how can we respond to the crisis? CSOs are reaching out to the health sector, seeing how they can be able to participate in communicating the correct messages. There's a particular project called Don't Go Viral that is really using, or it's calling upon artists to send music, plays, or skits, or visual arts pieces to actually create information or give information that is true, that is not, false. And so also trying artists being able to reach out to other sectors and participating in the wider issue has also been, I think, a positive outcome for this. But also I think that just as June was saying, now we're a little bit more careful about each other. And I think that under the crisis, under the circumstances, I think that is very positive. And right now we have an opportunity, I think, to really work with government, work with civil society organizations, work with individual artists to see how we can really organize ourselves better. For post-COVID, but also, I mean, even just for posterity, just so that we can be able to grow this sector once the crisis has subsided. And I'm a big believer in policy. Policy then compels the government to do something. It's all well and good if we all do things individually, but they are bound. There's a risk that this good deeds will maybe fizzle out or end. But if it is enshrined in a policy paper or in a legislation, then government in posterity is obliged to deliver that particular good or that particular recommendation. Thank you.
Great. Giuliani, there's someone asking if there's any support for artists in these lands and specifically what you're doing to help them out of this situation.
Hakuna. I'm just joking, but I'm just saying that the truth of the matter, all of us are speaking from a place of privilege as artists, because Nonini is an established artist. June akona show yake ya Power. David Muredi sasa ndio huyo hapo sasa, hata usiongee. Unaona Judy na wewe pia hapo ni CEO hapo, founder mkubwa, unaona. So we all speaking from a place of privilege, and we are speaking from a place of like, for me as an artist, I know I have different options when it comes to getting things done. But even before COVID happened, we knew that there was a big gap of the established and the not so established, who are the majority, who the 2,500 from MCSK makes a big difference in their lives than me. I'll complain, get. So I think that's, if we look at it from that angle also, but as far as what we're trying to do with DHC it's like, so those guys are already empowered, so they can do whatever they feel like. So they do their own events, they do their own live streaming things every night. I don't know from what time. We have a network of more than 200 young artists who are just going to create. But we have, for me, I've been trying to talk to different people, including Kenya Bank Association. We've have conversation with other corporates and trying to see like this particular moment is the only time that actually, instead of us slowing down, we should actually do work 10 times, because now is when we're needed. Now is when the people need to hear the message. Now is when people need to be changamushwad, unaona. So yeah. This is the only time that artists actually come in play, and crisis like this is when artists really, but so we can't hold down on investment and whatever, just because everybody's not where they need to be. So I might not have a particular thing that we're doing when it comes to artists particularly, but we have staff working. We have some staff when it comes to young people in the community. We have a network of 29 youth groups that we're working with right now, and we're paying them salaries every week, not salaries, to work on the communities, So yeah. In particular, artists, it needs other people to work. It doesn't need one person. Entertainment industry is the only industry that you need other people for it to work. So it's for me to do a call out and say, hey, Niaji, if you're in this space, because all of us, if we speak right now, the only person who have a problem is that UNESCO, and that's but I don't know who else is in there, the participants and the people watching. If it's just the artist or people in this space, at Mali, but if it's somebody in the who's funding, or somebody in the backing center, or somebody in KEPSA, or somebody in any, then it will make sense for us to even start having that conversation. I'm of the opinion that the 100 million would have been given, piped into the banks, and we are told, this is your advance, we need you to create. At the end of the year, at the end of this, you will pay back by a performance or by something else. So for me, I'm like that. So watu wamesota na there's nothing we're going to tell them right now apart from do iko wapi.
Yeah, good. I think there's someone who said in this time across all industries, kila mtu ameambiwa rudi back to hustling. So we are all back to hustling from square one, because you can lose it completely. And if you just sleep and wait for things to happen, they won't happen. So yeah. In terms of, I think that fund, I'm of the opinion that as well, we've been asking government for a creative fund for a very long time, to engineer projects, because this is the time to start, collaborating. If you're writing films, this is the time to write them. And then once, social distancing allows, then people can start filming or making this content. But they need to be content that you can make with the idea of distributing far and wide, whether it's music, film, fashion, whatever. But this is the time that people need to be incubating those ideas and not just sleeping and waiting for things to come out again. There's another question here from, I think, a parent who says, what advice do you have for parents with young creatives? Anyone can take this question.
As a parent of 3 creatives, I think there are so many online resources available now for free. So many, in fact, just a multitude. And I think one way to keep those creative juices flowing is get especially if they're of age, get them to an online course of sorts, whether it's how to play the piano. Even if they have, let's say, music teachers, or they can still engage. They can still engage with them online. But there are 1,000,001 courses, and I think everyone has come across one or other. We can share them here. See what's available. Writing courses. There's fashion courses. There's music. In fact, let me just give you a little. I owned a recording studio for so many years, but I never learned how to produce. I want to take this time to learn how to produce music. There's an example. I'm somebody's child.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, please.
Minda kwa real, minda kwa too real. I'll speak to that parent in the realest, most rawest form ever. Na minta sema hivi, if you have a child, make sure support their creative juices, support if they have a talent, support them 100%, but make sure they go to school, make sure they get those papers. Being a creative in Africa is a struggle. Being a creative in Africa is a struggle. There are no structures to support us. We're not like in the US or in the UK where something happens, the government is there to fund us and we're living the life. We're not being paid millions of dollars where we have mansions. Let's be real. Make sure that kid has a backup plan, but don't usikanyagie creativity yake. Support him, but also he has to have a backup plan. Asome, akule kitabu.
Acha hizo Nonini ba unachoma.
Lazima tukue real. Creatives in Africa are really struggling, my nigga.
No, the truth of the matter is, and then let me just add on to that. So for me, as a young Kenyan who grew up in Dandora, and I had nothing. When I started doing music, and the more I spend my time creating my working on my talent, and David Akwapa Zakoni, the more we worked on our talent and the more we grew it, the more I grew as a person, as an individual. And then I blossomed into figuring out other things that I can do just by being a musician, the confidence that came out of me being a musician. So maybe the only thing that we need to have a discussion around is that let's not always want to do music for the sake of being a billionaire, because that's what we see on TV. We do music because it's a way of expression, and because this is one of the best gifts that you can ever have. So the lie that has been there when it comes to the US industry, or how we see it, is that it looked like everybody else has made it just because they're on TV. No, we are like just a mama mboga somewhere who has to wake up every day in the morning, do their best to promote and to showcase what they have. If the majority likes you, well and good. You'll still go back and go to the soko and build whatever. So we need to rewire our thinking around art and music. We are just expressing and we are showcasing what we have inside. If it doesn't work, if I don't become a millionaire out of this, well and good, but at least I know for sure is that if I'm really good at what I do, if I'm really good at an artist, what I do, of course, there's always platform and spaces that I can be showcased and I can earn from my living. So let's not think from a place of being millionaires. If you're a millionaire and you come out of it, yes, because you're working a little bit harder and you figured out something. But we just want us to be comfortable in us, build our, whatever that you can offer the world. So I don't think it's a big struggle as such. The only thing that I think we are way better off than when we started 5 years, 10 years ago, then MCSKs were not even accountable. Nonini couldn't even talk. Nobody could even do anything. So we are way ahead when it comes to where the industry is. And all of us can say, and all of us, what the show that June is doing right now, the amazing show that she does everything. Now she has sponsors. She does an amazing production around it. We are way ahead from where we started. So we can't literally look at it from just the negative. Yes, Nonini, I know all of us have been trying to work on this to make it better, but let's always focus on them. Not just the
kitabu pia.
You know what I think is interesting?
Brain.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, so let me link it to what's happening in our education sector right now. We are moving to something called the competency-based curriculum. And I think if there was ever a time for our society and government to recognize just how important this particular sector is because of how many people it employs, then it is now. We talked about data. I think it's time that the government pulled together all the answers we gave them during the census and all these other initiatives that have been happening to see exactly how many people are brave enough to say, I actually earn my living from this particular sector. Because at the end of the day, the word artist, somebody Googled the word artist the other day. The definition is mostly about visual artists and painters and sculptors. It's not even, in my opinion, the correct words we should be using. I like to call us creative entrepreneurs or creative contributors, because it means the thing we are doing is linked to earning a living. So whether it is, you're not necessarily musical, or you're not the guy who's going to produce, or you're not the guy who's going to compose or write or publish, but you could be the guy who sees the management or the business angle within this sector. And if there was a course that could verify that, could teach that to the extent that, you know, if any one of us wanted to be experts in sound engineering, we would have had to leave this country to go and get that skill. Would have had to leave this country to go and understand what music business or the creative industry business management course would look like. And why is that not something we are considering now under the competency-based curriculum, not just for primary, secondary, but also tertiary institutions? There's different ways to look at, see how much of a revenue earner this entire ecosystem has been. And it's not easy. No profession is. I'm a lawyer. My daytime profession is a lawyer. But neither that isn't easy either. We still had to go through a rigorous training program and get qualified. Where is the qualification for the creative entrepreneurs? Where is that? Yeah.
I think there's a question from some filmmakers which I can take, there's someone who asked, are we or the filmmakers leveraging on new tech, VR and 4D, you know, and I think this is one area that I think the youth, especially the ones who have the time to learn, needs to take up this skill. So there's two softwares that are very, or are taking the world by storm in terms of how people are creating films and videos and animation as well. One is Unity and the other one is Unreal Engine. Those two softwares have free versions. And I think people need to learn how to use them. Right now, during this pandemic, Unity, I know, are offering free courses to learn how to use that gaming engine. Now, what is happening with that gaming engine is that when you learn how to, so you need to learn a bit of coding as well, but you're now able to make animations, video games, and film, and VR, and what we are also calling mixed reality, where there's a guy called, who has a page on Instagram called Cinematography DB, and he's been documenting his journey into making a feature film using one camera as a single guy with a green screen, and using gaming consoles to track the camera. Actually, he doesn't have a specific camera like on the rig. He just have a gaming console with the sensors hung around the house. And this is, you know, technology that we need to jump on like yesterday, because right now the gaming industry is as big as, I mean, it's bigger than the film industry. And the advantage with, you know, these industries is they borrow from each other, designers, you know, costumes, whatever. So you find that all those things, you know, what we call multimedia, will need music. I know, like, you know, gaming. The other day we saw a basketball game with, you know, Afrobeat, you know, as a celebration, whatever song or track. So these are some of the things that we can jump on, and, you know, they are free to use, I mean, to learn. So people need to, of course, if you want guidance, these are some of the courses that we offer at ADMI, so people can come and learn these technologies, and, you know, they will basically leapfrog 10 times from where we are now. Because right now, even in Hollywood, for the next 6 months or up to next year, it's probably they're not going to be able to make a film, because you need extras. How will those extras interact with each other if there's social distance? Yeah. So you have to think about, you know, they have to think about flying actors to Kenya. That will not happen right now, because if an actor gets sick in Kenya, how will they fly them back to the US? We are also at an advantage, and especially in our setting, because we can create content, you know, with less populated backgrounds within. So we need to look at that as well. I think we need to wrap up now, but I would love a quick comment from each of you as final comments. Yeah.
Acha nianze.
Go, twende.
So mi ningependa tu kusema hivi, I think this pandemic shouldn't make us go every time where we have to donate, we have to give, it's just simply to just relook at our institutions and how we did stuff, and to look at how we need to change distribution, basically the platforms. So nobody's even talking about we are not talking about the integrity of the truth in the art. That's already established. As long as you're an individual, you have a way of expression. What we are talking about is the platforms and how to take it from where you are to the people that really needs it. So I think we need to look at our institutions. The second thing we need to look at is cross something industries, crossing the industries. So in Amanisha, when I talk to a bank, they don't just want to give me money to be the face of their brand and their new campaign. When I talk to a bank, I'm talking to a bank, and how do we make sure that they, their customer base, I'm not treated, they don't want to give me a land and a title deed, do we make whatever, we need to have those layers when it comes to this. So I think we need to look at our institution and cross collaborations. Thank you.
Great. Next. Anyone else?
I think there's a next step.
Yeah.
And as I say, what the biggest lesson we've learned from this COVID-19 pandemic is that authenticity. By authenticity, I mean governments have been exposed, as in our structure's okay. How is our healthcare system? Unajua, can we cope? Can we produce and manufacture our own things to kilemewa? And people have been exposed from abroad to Kenya, you understand? So it's about time we know who our leaders should be. We know the right leaders to vote in for, who can make a difference, who can sit in that house and actually pass policies. And about the president, let me just talk about this 100 million that was announced. It was announced by the president. We need to know the difference between policy statements and actually people passing that policy in parliament. When the president makes declarations on TV, it's a statement. How sure are we that statement is going to be made into law? It needs to be passed in parliament to be gazetted, you understand, for it to be law. So sometimes let's not get excited with policy statements. And I'd also encourage people who meet the president and they interact with the president closely, get word from the industry. Ongea na watu kwa ground, ongea na watu mashenani, jua jama ule yuko Isiolo, anasafaje, so that you can be able to advise the president more for him to make a conscious decision on what to support, on how to support. Personally, I think that 100 million cannot even cushion the creative industry. The creative industry is so huge, 100 million is nothing. As in, hiyo tukidivide na 20,000 musicians who are members of MCSK, everybody ends up getting about 4,000. That cannot work. What I would have advised the president to do personally, kama ningekuwa mugenge true, ningesema hivi, media houses have not paid royalties for over 5 years. They have accrued amounts. Walikata kulipa. I've been a director in one of those CMOs, and I left. And these people don't pay. These people have refused to pay, and we're in court with them. We've been in court with them for years. If the media houses today, the president declared them to pay today what they've accrued all over the years and what they owe now, that would be over 750 million. My goodness, that's more than the 100 million that was announced today. And that's coming from our industry. That's not coming from a certain budget, like he said, for 100 million is going to come from the sports fund. It's not being taken for a certain fund to the musicians. It's money that exists in our industry. We can unlock it. It can be paid today, and it can cushion creatives, musicians, kila mtu. I'll see you. That's all I have to say. Let's continue supporting each other. Let's support the community. Feel to see peke yetu ndo nandikwa supported. If you have supported, support the community. Look for a cause. Madhare, Kibira, watu ni wengi. Kama si tunasafa na tunaishi tu hivi and we are feeling that heat. Imagine ule mtu ana need so moja kubuy food leo. Let's try and support each other. Mgenge throughout.
Nice. Thank you, Nonini. David.
I think everything that needs to be said will be said. But all I can say is, and I'll quote what I think got chat by Yvonne Mwangi saying, doctors told us to stay at home. Creativity keeps us at home. Imagine the people who are consuming all these creative outputs at home, music, Netflix, you name it. We have to realize we have value. We might not have money right now, but just remember, we have value and relevance. We are content creators. Right now, trust me, if you approach the news and say, look, I've got something provided, they're looking for stories. In fact, they're getting COVID fatigue right now. It's a very good time to get attention. Use it. A very good time to collaborate. It's a very good time, as the rest have said, to rethink our institutions. Our CMOs are working a lot better, and I can vouch for that because I consult for a few of them, and things are definitely looking better. Our association, Msanii Sacco, if this Sacco was working, if everyone had signed in, wouldn't have the health within the creative sector that we have. So it's time to, when we do come out of this, to look ahead and say, what have we learned from this? What can we do better?
Awesome. Judy.
Thank you. I think that I really come away encouraged, feeling that we can reimagine the CCI, the creative economy, and we can really see the opportunities to work together between government, between CSOs, between funders, between practitioners. I think there's an opportunity there that I see where we can work together to make sure that we're resilient, that after this COVID-19, post-COVID and during COVID-19, the creative industries we will continue to be. A collective voice and a sense of urgency is important. And also just the sense that we need to keep this conversation going so that we come up with some plans of actions. We need to actually move from point A to B. Really, as a sector, we need to organize, we need to structure, we need to rely on structures that will make sure that we grow. So I think that I come away feeling there's a sense of hope, there's a sense of resilience, there's a sense of togetherness, and it's really, really useful and fantastic. We'll have to continue to make sure that we raise awareness that we are a sector that is really pushing the economy, that we are contributing to the economy in many more ways than one. And so people out there need to begin to recognize our contribution, and we can only do that if we come together as a sector and develop policies and ways. Just one thing I wanted to say is that after the launch of the Resilient program that I spoke about in the beginning, we as Kenyans will also be planning our Resilient discussion, which is very similar to what we've had today. And I will hope that we will be able to invite and interest as many people as possible to join us for that discussion as well. And we keep this positive, keep moving, and we'll get there. Thank you.
Amazing. Adam.
All right, so I think everyone's probably more or less covered everything with the closing. But I think I just want to remind everyone, because I can also see the questions in the Q&A, just reminding everyone that we're not authorities, everyone on this panel. We can't give you final solutions. And what we're doing is giving suggestions. And as Judy said, and this is part of a previous conversation, that we're here to give you our opinions, to give you what our thoughts are on the situation, and to receive thoughts from you guys as well, who are in the audience or people who'd watch this later. What are your suggestions on the same thing? And like we continue, as Judy said, continue, as everyone else said, let's continue the conversation. And remember that we're not giving people final solutions. We're giving our opinions and looking for more. It's like, so we can actually come up with actual solutions. There you go.
Great, amazing. June.
Cheers.
I feel like it is my job to thank you, ATMI and DMF, to just appreciate you for having us.
You get to go. I was like, no, it's the last one.
Thank you, though. Honestly, thank you for providing this forum, and I do hope it is the first of many, because I do think it is an ongoing conversation, as all my fellow colleagues on the panel have said. My final sort of parting shots are a challenge and a call to our executive, to our government, to almost take the reins in this conversation and organize us. And by that, I mean, I recognize what it is that our entire ecosystem of this sector has brought into your coffers, and use that as the strength, call it the strength in numbers if you want. We've heard of the tyranny in numbers, and in a few years we'll be going to elections. This conversation will be very, very pertinent. So I think recognize the contribution that this particular industry has made, formally recognize this industry, and make a provision for it, because at the end of the day, we are useful for more than just michezo. We're useful for more than just entertainment. We're useful to be able to spread messaging. We have huge followings. When people are up for elections, these are the same people who are reached out to help to draw voters to the polls. So I think we really need to start thinking differently about how to invest more from a business perspective, not just handouts. I think a lot of funders within this space have been very generous. They've waived the interest rates for those who have taken loans in this particular sector. But imagine that the majority are not organized enough or registered in terms of formal companies to even access those facilities. So how can we start thinking differently? If I come to you to access some financial assistance, what is the trade-off? Make me create content that can then be a revenue generation. We can share revenue on some of these online platforms that our friend Juliani is creating, and that way it's not a handout. You're not just being given something for the sake of being given something. You're being enabled, and your craft is being invested in. Having said that, those who are really, really hungry cannot do anything if they're hungry. So if there's a provision for those vulnerable in our society, within our sector, something should be done for them. The last thing I'd like to say is on the issue of copyright. I've noticed a few questions on the chat. It's extremely important now more than ever to register and to protect the things that you're creating. You've seen how people can look at the positive side. The negative side is that we've all been shut down when we've tried to use other people's content. But imagine if this was your content. You're not necessarily shutting down people, but being able to earn revenue. Even if you were to reduce your license fees, you would still be able to earn revenue. So I encourage all of the creators out there to take that step. The Kenya Copyright Board has an online registration system, and it's for all creative works. It's not necessarily just music. So please look at that, look into the Copyright Board's website and go and see how you can actually protect your copyright. Finally, this is the one time you can tag that famous artist that you have been looking up to online. Tell them, as I sit here in my house in Kenya and you in America, let us collaborate. Tell, I don't know, whoever it is, you have like all the barriers have been broken, literally. You don't have to fly to America. You don't have to fly to, I don't know, South Africa even. Tag those guys and say, as I'm sitting here with my guitar, can you do something on your end? And let's share this, create new content, collaborate, and be intentional about it. And obviously just keep checking on each other. Keep your spirit positive, because I do believe there's going to be certainly a better day. God bless.
Yeah, I knew you had a lot to say. That's why I can.
Me?
Yeah, wow. All
Thank
wise
you.
one. Yeah.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for making time. I believe collaboration and sharing ideas and data and information to all the people who sent in their questions. We couldn't possibly answer all of them, but we'll spend some time, answering them immediately after this, and some of them will follow up with an email later on some of the questions. Thank you so much for attending. I think what I would like to say is also that at ADMF, we are also planning on creating a space for creatives, which we are calling the Creative and Tech Hub. So it's the first of its kind, not just for IT. So it's for any creative, and it will be for members. I mean, for people to register as members, but they can come and use that space regularly. So they will set up all the equipment that they need to collaborate, make films, make music, make whatever. So that's one of the things that we are doing from our side. Hopefully will benefit the industry. But I'm very hopeful, and I know we shall come out strong out of this. Yeah. Thank you all so much, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. See you guys. Is I still saying bye bye?
We're online. Supporting local creatives. Peru.
I think we'll call you shortly in a few minutes. Let me just stop the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.